Dirty Bertie. Pants. David Roberts, written by Alan MacDonald. Chapter 1. It was Thursday morning at the swimming pool. Bertie was getting changed after the lesson with Miss Kroll. His clothes lay scattered on the cubicle floor. Ha! Ha! I can see your pants, jeered a loud voice. Bertie snatched up his towel. Who said that? Bertie's wearing blue ones, taunted the sing-song voice. Bertie looked up. Two mocking eyes leered at him over the cubicle wall. It was his sworn enemy, Noel Nick. Get lost, said Bertie, throwing a sock at him. Nick stuck out his tongue. Make me, slow coach. Who are you calling a slow coach? Bertie demanded. You. You're always last to get changed, sneered Nick. Bertie narrowed his eyes. I bet I can get changed a lot quicker than you. Oh yeah, said Nick. Yeah, said Bertie. All right, said Nick. Let's have a race. Bertie could never resist a race, especially if it meant a chance to beat big-headed Nick. Suits me, he said. Last one back on the coach has to sit next to Miss Boot. Nick considered it. A smile spread slowly across his smug face. I've got a better idea, he said. Last one on the coach has to come to school tomorrow in their pants. Bertie's jaw dropped. What's the matter, slow coach, scared you're going to lose, sneered Nick. Bertie glared back. Not a chance. Okay, shake on it, said Nick. Bertie climbed on the bench and the two of them shook hands. Bertie smiled. He would show that slimy slug who was slow. Nick wouldn't see him for dust. Wait till he told his friends about this, Noel Nick coming to school in his pants, now that would be funny. Ready? Said Nick, through the wall. Go! Bertie grabbed his trousers and yanked them on. His fingers wrestled with his shirt buttons. Socks next. Where was his other sock? He wasted precious seconds hunting around the floor on his hands and knees. Who needed two socks anyway? One was plenty. He jammed on his shoes, his jumper, his coat. He stuffed his soggy trunks and towel into his bag and burst out of the cubicle. Arg! Bertie tripped over a mop and bucket that someone had left outside the door. In seconds he was back on his feet and racing down the corridor. Gangway, he yelled, barging between Donna and Pamela. Sorry. Emergency. Can't stop. Eugene flattened himself against the wall as Hurricane Bertie tore past. But turning the corner, a gigantic shadow fell across his path. Bertie, thundered Miss Boot. No running in the corridor. But miss, walk don't run, Bertie. Walk. Bertie groaned. He slowed to a walk as Miss Boot watched him like a hawk to the front door. Once outside, he flew down the steps, taking them 3 at a time. The coach was waiting in the car park. Almost there. Bertie dived through the door and flung himself into a seat. Yes. I made it, he panted. I'm the first one back. What took you so long, slow coach? Drawled a jeering voice. Bertie gasped. No, it couldn't be. It wasn't possible. Noel Nick lounged on the back seat. His hair was combed, his tie perfectly knotted, and he wasn't the slightest bit out of breath. Tough luck, Bertie, you lose. He smirked. I am so looking forward to you coming to school tomorrow. Chapter 2. Bertie sat in gloomy silence as the coach drove back to school. Darren pushed a bag of crisps under his nose. Want one? Bertie shook his head. Are you ill? Asked Darren. Shoo, said Bertie. I'm trying to think. What about? Darren munched his crisps noisily. Bertie sighed. If I tell you, you've got to promise you won't breathe a word. Darren leaned closer. Okay, Bertie looked around to check that no one could hear. He dropped his voice to a whisper. I bet Nick I could beat him back to the coach after swimming. And, said Darren. And I lost the bet. Now I've got to come to school tomorrow in my pants. Darren grinned with delight. In your pants? Ha ha ha. Shut up, hissed Bertie. No, but seriously, giggled Darren, in your pants? He. Keep your voice down, pleaded Bertie. I can't help it. That's so funny, chortled Darren. Eugene turned round from the seat in front. What's so funny? Bertie's going to come to school in his pants, said Darren. For a bet. Eugene stared at Bertie. You're not? No, said Bertie, turning crimson. He was starting to wish he'd never mentioned it. But in your pants? Stop saying it, cried Bertie. You're meant to be my friends. You're meant to help me. Darren crunched another crisp. It's not our fault, he said. You made the bet. What can we do? Bertie thought about it. I know, he said. Do it with me. What? Said Darren. Come to school in your pants, said Bertie, desperately. We'll all do it, together. It'll be brilliant. Why don't we? Darren and Eugene stared at him. You've got to be kidding, said Darren. There's no way anyone's going to see my pants. Eugene, pleaded Bertie. You'll do it, won't you? Eugene shook his head. Sorry, Bertie. I don't think my mom would let me. Bertie slumped back in his seat and stared out the window, miserably. So much for friends. He was on his own. Back in class, Bertie racked his brains. What was he going to do? Why oh why had he let Nick trick him into that stupid bet? He was certain that Two-Faced Toad must have cheated. He was probably wearing half his clothes before the race even started. In any case, there was no going back now. A bet was a bet and he'd shaken on it. He tried to imagine walking into school wearing nothing but his pants. It didn't bear thinking about. People would be laughing at him for the next billion years. No, he'd just have to think of some way out. Brying! The bell sounded for break. Bertie trudged out to the playground, lost in thought. He. There he is. Bertie turned round to see Angela Nicely and two of her little friends. Angela lived next door to Bertie. She was 6 years old and had been in love with Bertie ever since the time he gave her a sherbet lemon to stop her talking. What do you want? Glared Bertie. He. We want to. He. Ask you something, giggled Angela. Not now, said Bertie. I'm busy. He walked faster, but Angela kept up with him. What color are they, Bertie? she simpered. Said Bertie. White or pink, giggled Laura. Frilly or spotty, sniggered Yasmin. Bertie swung round to face them. What are you talking about? Your pants, squealed Angela. Nicholas told us. You're coming to school in your pants tomorrow. The girls burst into a fresh fit of giggles. Bertie turned a deep shade of pink. I'm not, he stammered. Yes, you are, said Angela. Everybody says so. Listen. It's rubbish. I'm not, said Bertie, desperately. Angela edged closer to him, smiling sweetly. I'm going to bring my camera, Bertie, she trilled. I'm going to take a picture of you in your... Bertie didn't wait to hear any more. He turned and fled. He hid in the cloakroom, till he was sure they had gone. This was worse than he'd ever imagined. Darren and Eugene knew. So did Angela and her friends. By now the news would be round the whole school. He should have guessed that Big Mouth Nick would tell everyone. Tomorrow they'd all be waiting for him, whispering and sniggering. If only he could think of some way out. Bertie considered himself a master of clever plots and cunning plans, but this time his mind was blank. It was no use. He wished he was a worm so he could crawl into a hole and hide. Chapter 3. Bertie, boomed Miss Skinner in assembly. Out to the front, now. Me, miss, said Bertie. Yes, you. And make it snappy, I haven't got all day. Bertie gulped and dragged himself out to the front. Why was everyone staring at him and sniggering? Haven't you forgotten something, Bertie? Said Miss Skinner. Bertie looked down. He gasped. He was wearing nothing but his pants. Arghhhhhh, he screamed and woke up. He breathed a sigh of relief and sank back on his pillow. Thank goodness, it was only a nightmare. But wait, what was today? Friday! Pants Day! It wasn't a nightmare after all, it was really happening. There was a knock on the door. Mom came in. Aren't you up yet, Bertie? It's time for school. Groaned Bertie. I don't feel well. I think I've got germy measles. Mom felt his head. She said. I can't see any spots. I think they're invisible, he mumbled. Don't be silly, Bertie. There's no such thing. How do you know? Said Bertie. If they're invisible, they could be all over me. I could be dying of them. I could get dressed, said Mum. You're going to school. Bertie flopped out of bed. He pulled out his drawer and looked inside. All of his pants were teeny-weeny. What he needed was extra-large pants to cover as much of him as possible. Wait a moment, his dad had lots of pairs of pants. Big pants. Surely he could borrow a pair? Bertie tiptoed into his parents' room. He pulled open a drawer and dumped piles of pants onto the floor. Right at the bottom he found what he was looking for. A large pair of blue Y-fronts. Bertie tried them on and looked in the mirror. They looked absurdly big, but they were the best he could find. Mom and Susie were eating breakfast in the kitchen. Bertie tried to sneak past them and reach his chair. Ha! H.A. shrieked Susie, catching sight of him.